Good evening here. Hello. Let me see if I can get this centered a little bit better. Check this overhead light. I don't like that much, but I'm going to need it to read. Um, Not happy with the headset or the cell phone. Latest and greatest in technology, but it's a pain in the ass to make it work right. And I don't have any confidence in it because I don't get to hear very well right now. Um, but I got some feedback that my voice was not, my audio needed to be picked up a little bit better, so I'll use the headset, hoping that it's coming out okay for you. Um, and we did a reading last time, and I've been wanting to get to this Bible study, if you will, which I go through this and comment, and try not to take you too far off track. Just want to say that I've been trying to keep up with some of the information, but I just don't have time for it all. It's not a priority to chase down things and understand everything with all the new details. It's also overwhelming, and I've got plenty on my plate right now. So, as far as the snake venom hypothesis, I'm being criticized because I'm not on top of what it really is and all that, and didn't have time to watch a specific link, and I'm getting chided over it, and I'm like, if you want to do that, then talk to somebody else. I mean, I'm not here to I mean, if you don't want to let me ask questions when you're telling me something, then I don't have time for you. Because if I have a simple question and you're just going to keep on going and going, then that's not very polite and it doesn't help. I mean, there's simple things like coding and coating, you know. So whatever it is when it comes to that stuff, my take on it is that there's so many levels of deceit that I don't even want to deal with it, because to explain, and that's what these guys do. They did that in the Kennedy assassination. They put up so many levels of deceit nobody would ever figure it out. That's what they did in 9/11. They put up so many things that nobody would ever figure it out. I think we got pretty close on that, and I think we finally understand the Kennedy assassination as well. And we certainly understand the USS Liberty. But I think what we need more than anything else is spend time in the Word. And we went from Genesis 6 all the way up to the end of Genesis 10. I'm not going to be able to cover that tonight, I don't think. I'll get carried away talking about stuff. I appreciate the feedback that I get. I don't work that hard on this stuff, but the real problem is that I get so many ideas and I don't get a chance to get them all out. And then I end up talking and I let myself get carried away from one thought to the next thought, and not sleeping well. A lot of us aren't sleeping well. We're going through a different part of the galaxy, so the radiation is quite a bit different. Our sun is being perturbed. I am afraid that we are going to get a coronal mass ejection that'll come square at the Earth. I think that's what happens when we get in this part of the clock, if you will, of the time span of the cycle around the Milky Way galaxy. There's so much I'd like to tell you, but there's just not enough time to do all of it. So I need this overhead light on. Sorry, folks. I know it doesn't look too good. And it came to pass when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them. Okay, this is Genesis 6:1. And the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Now, we have to think about a couple of things here. The sons of God, who are the sons of God? It can refer to several things. It could refer very, very simply to the fallen angels, is what I think it refers to. Let me nail that one right now. There's other things it could refer to. Just stay open-minded, but that's the way I read it, and I really just don't even want to bring anything else up. However, the phrase, they took them wives of all which they chose. Marriage back in these times was not like it is today, where you have a contract issued by the state. Marriage in those times was the marriage act, if you will, was the sex act. So if you had sex with somebody, you were marrying them. That's what the natural basic order was. So if you engaged in sex, you were marrying that person, taking them for a wife. And so basically what we're talking here is the fallen angels. And of course, the sons of God, were these the good sons of God or bad sons of God? I think they were the 200 angels that got cast out or blown out of the skies, out of the heavens by Michael the Archangel, maybe a space battle, or they just decided they were going to thumb their noses at God and join Lucifer and come down here into the earth and cause grief for the inhabitants of the earth. Probably a great likelihood of that because man, the earthy man, the Enosh or an Enoshwi, those are the two words for the original man on the planet, were here probably for more than 1.5 million years at the time these guys arrived. And the Enosh and Enoshwi today, we would note those as being primarily the Mongolian sorts. And of course, there's several different species, as I prefer to call them, on the planet of Mongolian, if you will. So the race things just don't hold water because there's more difference within that group than there is between the groups. Yeah, my supervisor, Lewis Master, explained that to me. Lewis Master's not really in support of what I'm doing, but he says he'll talk to me. Says he wants to hear about my dog. Okay, Lewis, I understand that. He says I'm not enjoying life very much, or my life very much. Well, you know, when you're waking up to the reality and you're facing the facts, you're facing the truth, it's kind of disturbing. And I'd rather be wide awake than asleep. And Yahweh said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Kind of awkward that we have this 120-year thing here, and yet all of these other guys are living 600, 800 years in the passages after this. There is a criticism about the book of Genesis. It's kind of an editorial criticism. And what I have heard touted is that the scribes mixed up the order of the verses, so they're out of order. Now, I've never have seen them put in the proper order, but I certainly would like to see what somebody thinks the proper order is if this is mixed up. I think that it's our job to take this and sort it out. That's our responsibility. That's our task. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. A lot of those old Greek myth characters are probably historical facts. They were probably born of that. Now, the giants in the earth in those days, that's an important thing. It turns out that there were a lot of different races of giants, if you want, or species of giants. And some of them were Mongoloid and some of them were Caucasoid. That's from what I can tell. Skull shape is the biggest differentiator of, well, they use it for race, but I prefer to use it for species. So skull shape is the biggest thing. We've had the guys with elongated skulls in Peru, the elongated skulls of the pharaohs. We seem to be dealing with the pharaoh again right now. Got the ultimate tax system, if you want. I mean, Joseph managed that system for Pharaoh back then. I got mixed feelings about that. Yeah, he was saving lives, but I don't think it was a real great deal in many ways. So, we have giants. Now, I saw a giant's bed one time. The guy was in Romania, in Transylvania, in the tight, twisting hills of that area, on a tour as a student in 1973, pretty close to Christmas Day. And the Vlad the Impaler also nicknamed Count Dragula with 2 G's. Just like Rockefeller, that's not their name. They're name changers like the rest of them. And their original name, at least the last one, had 2 G's in it, just like Count Dragula has 2 G's in it. And this guy impaled his own people in order to do psychological warfare against invading armies and dishearten them. He was very good at it. And you got your vampire stories from that. Now, his bed, I had pictures of it, and I don't remember the exact proportions. That's been quite a while. I mean, that's been, it ain't quite 50 years ago, but it's getting close. My understanding, and I have no proof of this, is that all of the royalty in Europe is descended from that one man. Somehow they're related to him. I don't know. That would be interesting to find out. Maybe it's the black nobility instead of the guys that are out there in public, the formal ones we recognize. And Yahweh saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. So we weren't doing too good. Now, is this the wickedness of man? I'm assuming he's talking about the men that had these daughters. I'm assuming he's talking about men like you and me. Not giants and not fallen angels, but we got corrupted too. And it repented. Now, if anybody says that Yahweh never repents, just cite this passage. We have got repented several times as the verb, past tense, for what Yahweh did. He regretted, we could say. Repented that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And Yahweh said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repents me that I have made them. Now that's an interesting thing, and I'm not sure what is meant by all of these things. The one word that stands out to me that I'd want to look into at some point would be the beast. What do they mean by that? There's some not so very flattering words in here, as was brought to my attention by some young Negro man who had read the Bible, pointed out to me some of this stuff. I didn't want to listen to them too much because I could tell it bothered them and offended them, and I don't want to go there. It doesn't do us much of any good. But Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh. These are the generations of Noah. Okay, Noah, these are the children of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. We take that to mean that Noah was the way God had intended him to be. In other words, he wasn't a hybrid. He wasn't corrupted. His flesh wasn't corrupted. He was of the order that Yahweh had given us. So he didn't, or his parents didn't abandon those standards. And this is important. And Noah walked with God. There's only a few in the Bible that have walked with God. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So what we know is that when there's a lot of mixing and when there's a lot of population, you end up with violence. I mean, when you pack people into a tight space, you end up with violence. When you mix people up as well, you end up with people that don't understand the social contract, what's expected of them. You end up with people that are not very well oriented as to what their identity really is. And you also end up with children that quite often are rejected by their parents or part of their parents. And so there's all kinds of problems with that. Now, I got one friend who was a chiropractor, and he's been at this for a long time. And he says that when we study this book carefully, the flood of Noah in particular, that we realize that when there's a mix of species, races, whatever you want to call it, probably races would be more applicable than most terms. there's nothing wrong with the children. They turn out okay. There is some difficulty. I think we've seen that today where such children aren't always accepted. You know, one group thinks they aren't close enough to them. The other group thinks they're not close enough to them. They're considered traitors even sometimes. And it certainly isn't the problem of the children. And from this, my buddy says, my older brother says, there's nothing wrong with the offspring. The problem is it's their offspring's offspring. It's the grandchildren, that next generation in which the violence appears. And right now today in the United States, I would have to say that we've got a lot of violence. You know, people don't know what to identify with. We have different cultures that aren't mixing very well. You know, iron mixing with clay, it's not going too good today. We can do it if we're united for a superordinate goal, a goal which we cannot achieve separately, which I think we have at hand. So maybe all this conflict will turn out to be a blessing because we might actually unite and restore truth and justice. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. Now, that could be behaviorally corrupted, or it could be race mixing. I don't know what else to call it. But it also could be hybrids. It could be species intermixing. It could be fallen angels with humans. Or it could be fallen angels with other animals, too. There's a distinct possibility of that, and I know that's out there. But when you look at those old-time maps, you'll see that there's wild types of animals and beasts around there that look like they're mixtures of men with animals. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And then we have this command to make an ark of gopher wood. The dimensions of this very large ocean-going boat allowed for tremendous stability, which was what was required in this sort of a storm. And it was big, and it took a long time for him to make it. I would imagine his sons helped him, but I don't imagine anybody else would have helped him. Now, as far as the flood goes, there's something I want you to understand that we do not have to agree upon. We don't have to agree on this completely. Someday we'll know the full truth. We'll get there. But I have older men, pastors who disagree. Some think the flood was worldwide. Some believe it was local. It doesn't matter that much in some ways, but in other ways it makes a big difference. These days I lean towards it being local. If you go to my website, my blog, givingpsychologyaway.com, and you look at Your Heritage by Bertrand Comparet, which is one of the pages. There's a tab for that page. If you access that, there are two PDF files you can download. And you've got the text, and then you have the maps in black and white. There is a copyright. There was a copyright on the maps, but I've never been able to discern who owns the copyright. So if you know who owns the copyright, have them contact me. I'd be glad to honor their copyright and take it down. Otherwise, I consider it in the public domain because nobody's claiming it. Bertrand Comparet did not copyright his sermons and his writings, so those are public domain. If you look at the maps and read some of the notes on those, you'll see that this was in the Tamarind Basin, and Bertrand Comparet was one of those who thinks it was just a local flood. I don't know. I think the important thing here is what happens to the people, how things deteriorate, because in the New Testament we will find that it says, as it was in the days of Noah, so it shall be in the second coming. Now, I don't know how many times he comes back, folks. Might be 2 more times. Could be more than that. there's just so many different days described that it could all happen in one day. I don't doubt that. But that's kind of a mystery for us. I think we might be living during that time where you and I get to see that. So we have here the size of the ark, and a cubit, approximately 18 inches. And there are other interpretations where this cubit is, I think, actually longer than 18 inches. I don't need to split hairs like that. If you find that it helps you, then let us know about it. So it was a big, huge vessel made of gopher wood, sealed with pitch inside and outside. Pretty doggone waterproof. And the interesting thing here is Genesis 6, verse 8, Genesis chapter 6, verse 17. Behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh. Within is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. So he's going to bring flood waters. But with you shall I establish my covenant. Okay, and it's supposed to be him, his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives with you. And then all of these things, these animals, if you will, 2 of every sort shall you bring in alive. And he says, Yahweh says he's going to send them to you. So you don't even have to go out and collect them. They're going to come to you. And so he has all of that. He's to collect pairs, or two of the pairs, so that they will be able to reproduce. And also all of the food. He's going to have the food in there. Thus did Noah according to all that God commanded him, so did he. I think that's pretty simple and pretty straight ahead. I am pretty fatigued. I just wanted to get something out there for you. I got a few other ideas I'd like to get out. Pretty soon I'm going to go to sleep here, and I'm going to sleep real good tonight. I'll try to, this is going to be called a Bible study, and it's just going to be this one chapter. We preceded this with the Bible reading, which had several chapters in it. The books, the Bibles, the different versions, the different size print, the tabbed ones, black leather, brown leather. It's an imitation leather. Those are all available. I'll put the link down below. You do get a special price. All of those that I am getting credit for end with the price in 77. That was the distributor's idea, not my idea. I rather like that touch though. And if you go to another link there, or travel around on the site too much, you'll see a higher price. It doesn't end in 77. So you might want to just refollow that link and retrace it. There's a couple of ways to handle things on that page. There's a drop-down box, and then there's also the links to give you a description of each one. As far as which one I recommend, I mean, I think you can save a little bit of money by foregoing the tabs. Eventually, you're going to be able to know where the books are anyway. And so you might as well get used to flipping back and forth. But if it's new and you really want to push into this a little faster, then by all means get the tabs. You're going to find that the notes are just wonderful. There's just enough notes, not too many. There's no agenda in the notes. That's important. Almost all of the other modern Bibles have agendas, political agendas, in the notes. Almost all of them, including the NIV, and especially the Enemy's Bible, the Schofield Reference Study Bible. That was funded by Samuel Untermeyer. Samuel Untermeyer paid to have that done. He also blackmailed President Woodrow Wilson and forced President Woodrow Wilson to accept a central bank, a Rothschild bank. How did he do that? Well, I know a little bit about that story. There was a woman named Mrs. Peck, a married woman, and he had an affair with her. And he wrote love letters to Mrs. Peck. That's what got him in trouble. The love letters, the evidence. And those were what he was blackmailed with. We also, I believe that her husband and this woman were put up to doing this. It was a honeypot. It was a honey trap. And Woodrow Wilson fell for it. And later you can see that he was quoted as saying that he was a most unfortunate, unhappy man because he realized that he had destroyed his nation by creating that central bank. Yeah, folks, there's no money. They stole it all. They stole everything. That's how they've got control of us at this point. That's how they have control of the whole world. So when you think you hear that we're the free world, the president of the free world, the Asians laugh. They laugh because they know that we're enslaved and we think we're free. We're working for that bullshit script that they issue that has no value except the labor we give them. So we're on their damn treadmill. We're nothing more than giant rats to them, or mice punching the button, clicking away, doing as we're trained, as we're told. All right, I'm going to mark this, and we're going to pick up with Genesis 7 later on. Good night, folks.